popping on a little bit early here, just a tad, making sure everything is good to go. No Jackie Harmon tonight. It'll be me. And I've got David Gildden here tonight with us. And I'm just pulling up the info. He is a filmmaker and four-state paranormal producer with the haunting history, host and of the Paranormal Frequencies podcast. He's going to be on with us tonight, so we're looking forward to that. We're going to be talking about ghost lights, spook lights. You know, Brown Mountain, you probably heard of that. And there's, you know, they're all over the map, all over, you know, the U.S. So we're going to be getting him on, talking about that, along with some other things tonight. So I'm glad for that. Glad to hear his expertise in the subject. He's got some ghost lights around him where he's at as well. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start welcoming people in, guys. It's been one heck of a week, hasn't it? It's been like jam-packed. Everything's like condensed down to this little tiny space. And, you know, it's a lot. Family, food, all of that, right? So let me see who we got here. We got Ray Stan in the house. Let's see. Of course, he's been here since like 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, chatting on and off with him. We got Cosmic Joe Chronicles. We got Angie. And we got Darren. Nice. Richard. Christine. Should I say it like that? Since you got it all separated. We got Phyllis in the house. Welcome, everybody. And more keep popping in as we go. Great. Fantastic. Anyway, like I said, we've got David Gildden coming in, talk about some spook lights and stuff that he's seen. You know, and not just that, but some other stuff as well. And he'll be talking about all that stuff as we go. Anyway, let's check our time. We got 8 o'clock. We already talked about Brown Dwarf. We got Melvin WD-40 coming in. He's lubing us up. That's what Dave likes to say. By the way, you're going to want to watch us later when I'm on Dave's show about 11 o'clock. I'm going to come on and do the cryptid report for Jackie since she's not going to be here. I've got some exciting stuff for you guys. Primo. Top notch, I'm telling you. We got light walkers. We got Patrick Noble Patrick, as Dave likes to say. We got Darren. Absolutely. Everybody's popping in. Welcome. Okay, let's go ahead and do the intro, and then we'll get into it. Right? All right. let me bring David in, and we'll start this off. But just before that, I want to say I always find it amazing that, like, people like Race Fan, I find out that he's in Washington State with me, not far south from me, actually. And it's just incredible, how close we are to each other. Tonight, if you guys could just put in the talking points what state you're from. You may be real close to somebody else that watches the show, and it would be awesome if you would share at least your state, maybe town that you're in, because that would be freaking cool. Anyway, let's get David on in here and listen to him tell his story about spook lights.
Hello.
Hello, David.
Man, that Ron Moorhead audio, it gives me goosebumps every time. I'll explain why a little bit later, but every time it gets me.
Yeah, I asked him, I said, hey, bud, can you let me use your audio for the show? And he was like, yes. And I'm actually, since I've had it on my intro for so long, I'm almost thinking about taking it out, or at least minimizing it, because it's so pronounced.
It's overpowering.
It is overpowering. Yeah. It's way overpowering. Anyway, sir, I want to learn about you tonight. I want to know what you do. I want you to tell us some stories about the spook lights. That's the majority of the reason I want you here tonight, because I've experienced some things over here at Mount Baker and Mount Adams, and I want to kind of hear what you have to say about all that stuff.
Yeah. Real quick, what's up, Chuck? The Boogeyman 421 down there in the comments. He's my co-host on the podcast Boogeyman Radio. So we're on YouTube and Facebook. So my name's David Gildden. That's how you pronounce my last name. You're not the first one to get it wrong, so don't worry about that.
Thank you.
You made me update. I didn't know if you saw my private chat. You made me update my bio on Facebook. I was like, oh damn, is it that old? So I had to update some things.
Okay.
But yes, I am a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker. I've got a couple documentaries on the Spook Light Phenomenon called Into the Light. The first one is just an exploration. The second one was, we called it a Spook Light Theory, because in that one, or by the time we ended filming on that, ended up developing this theory, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I'm also producer, creator of another paranormal show called Haunting History on YouTube. It's also on a couple streaming services. I forget the actual platform that streams it for me. They pay me, and I just let them use it. But I've also got a couple other things that I'm working on, other projects that are in the fold that I'll be working on this next year. And I also do events here in the Midwest called the Midwest Mystery Tour, where I host events like paranormal investigations, ghost hunts. But they're not your standard ghost hunts that you get to do with people. These ones I actually do experiments on people, on the guests. It's a lot of fun both for them and for me, and I get to do a little bit of research and analysis out of it, and they get to be my guinea pigs. So it's been building. I've only done it for a couple of years, but it's been picking up steam really quick, and I might be expanding to the East Coast this next year.
Nice. I'd love to have you over here, and on the west side anyway. So fantastic. Let us know when you're coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into what your theory is on the spook lights.
Well, to understand it and to get into the theory, you have to understand the journey to that theory. And when you start with it, from my point of view, my angle here, I live in Southwest Missouri. I'm about an hour from the Joplin Spook Light, and it's probably one of the more well-known light phenomena that happen in the United States. And it's got other names like Devil's Promenade, Devil's Light, and all this. But the reason I started filming on it was because I tried to do some research, and I noticed there wasn't anybody really talking about it as far as documentaries go, videos on YouTube. You might find somebody that's going out there and just farting around and trying to have some fun, and but there wasn't anything substantial out there. So I talked to my friend Josh Hurd, who's also another filmmaker, and we decided, let's cover it. Let's do a movie on it. And we raised some funds, shot the movie. Our first idea was to take 3 locations around the country, and we were going to tell the story, the legends, the lore, the experiences people have had, and then we're going to go out and try to document it, and then try to put all the information out there that we can on them. So out of all the legwork, and this is where we really found out that this wasn't an isolated phenomenon, that this is something that happens worldwide, and there's some places it can be explained or just kind of brushed off as, oh, those are, like the Hazelden lights, they say are ball lightning that happens, which happens between 2 peaks usually. And there's actually a research facility out there researching it.
Interesting.
But so we narrowed it down to the 3 locations: St. Mary's, Iowa, the Joplin Spook Light, of course, and then the Brown Mountain Lights in North Carolina. So with the St. Mary's Light, we went out there, we filmed small town, and like if you watch the movie, which both the films are on YouTube, they're free for anybody that wants to watch them. They're on my haunting history site. But in a small town, if you want information, a place that doesn't have a library, you go to the next best place, the bar. So we went to the bar, and I tell you what, when you go to a bar, people will talk, and they'll tell you way more than you could really even care to know. And this one fella, he introduced us to the actual landowner. In fact, the landowner ended up showing up like an hour later, and we had lunch with him. He invited us out to his property, and he let us camp out there for a few nights, let us shower in his home and all that stuff. So that was fantastic. Josh was pretty perturbed. He thought we weren't going to be able to shower or anything. He's very anal about that. Me, not so much. I'm an outdoors guy. I can work with it. So, the first night we were out there, we were sky watching. We were watching for these light anomaly, and we caught something that we thought could be the light, but it turns out there's some action going on further out than what we noticed during the daytime. Somebody actually had a motorhome way out there, and they were probably out shining a light, so we had to dismiss all that. So the next day we go to Indianola, Iowa, which is next town over. They've got a university there. And we hit up the Historical Society, did a lot of research, and we actually come across this story that actually supported the theory behind the spook light as far as the legends go. And it was about this young girl who caught fire, died in a house fire in the late 1800s, and supposedly that was her scene out in the woods. And we actually found the same name of the girl who died the same way, and basically a coal oil lamp had burst and caught her dress on fire, and she caught fire, and she died of the burns a little time after, but the part of the house did catch fire. But the second night going out there and investigating, we didn't see anything, so we could only chalk it up to like the changing of the lands, becoming a farming community. The farming practices probably disturbed the land. If there was any kind of like geological happenings, the farming practices probably disturbed the land too much to where the light would show up anymore. We moved on to the Joplin Spook Light. We did a lot of research out there. We found a anomaly with some EMF along the Spook Light Road, which the road that it's on is where it's said to travel. The interesting thing was, like, a lot of the tales with this spook light was there's a road that's dedicated to the spook light, and a lot of the stories we got was about the spook light traveling through fields, traveling good distances actually. And right now, as it is in Joplin, or outside of Joplin, it's between Joplin and Quapaw, Oklahoma. As it is, the police don't want anybody out there. They'll actually fine people for standing out there on the main road that are trying to find the light. So we went one road over, which was a dirt road, and very seldom traveled. So we stayed out there the first night, and we weren't even filming, and it wasn't even an hour in. We were just kind of chilling, and
Yeah.
and we just happened to both look down the road at the same time, and we saw this blue light just stretch across the road like it was at ground level. Stretched across the road, was there for 3 seconds, and then collapsed.
Whoa.
And
Okay. Go ahead.
So we were kind of befuddled. We're like, did we just see what we thought we saw? Like it was odd. This wasn't like what we expected. We expected a ball of light to be traveling. And in case anybody hasn't really heard of a spook light, it's basically a light anomaly. It's a ball of light that seems to move on its own accord. But this blue light was completely nothing like it was ever described. So our first thought was maybe there was a car coming down the road behind us and turned somewhere, and we just caught like some headlights off the road or something. So I made Josh go try that out. We thought, well, when he peeked over the hill, all of the fields lit up when he came over the hill. So we thought maybe they were coming from that end, but we didn't see anybody. But maybe, just maybe, somebody's coming from the other end and turned somewhere. So we jumped in the car and we drove down the road for about 2 miles, and there wasn't anywhere to turn off. So nobody had come down that road. Further research, we thought maybe bioluminescence, but there wasn't anything laying across the road. There was a tree that was overhanging, but the tree even got lit up by the light.
Okay.
So it wasn't, we couldn't put our finger on that. And we couldn't put our finger on swamp gas. We actually took a device that's geared towards measuring methane and other gases in the atmosphere. We took one of those out there, picked nothing up.
Wow.
So what it was, we don't know, but we didn't even catch it on film. So we're kind of, out of luck on that.
Well, I will
know you had
ask.
something to say on that.
Yeah. I was wondering, did it move with intention?
It didn't move at all. It just lit up and appeared for 3 seconds, and then it just collapsed.
Just right on the road. What's the going theory? Was there somebody that was run over in the area? Is there somebody that got killed?
So this is the thing about Joplin Spook Light. There's like so many theories about what it could be. I mean, ideas range from scientific to supernatural, and a lot of the supernatural stuff I haven't found articles to support the older claims. Like the most popular belief is there was 2 Indian lovers from separate tribes, and the father from one tribe wouldn't let the man marry his daughter because his dowry wasn't big enough. So they took off, left both the tribes. They were hunted down, and they jumped into the river that's out there. There's a place called Lover's Leap that's dedicated to them, where supposedly they jumped into this water and they died. Okay. And supposedly the light is them. I've also heard Civil War stories regarding a captain who was captured and executed not by gunfire but by cannon fire.
Okay.
And that's supposedly the captain looking for his head because it was taken off.
Gotcha.
But prominently, what I've heard even from the police is there's actually been a lot of death on Spook Light Road. And the reason for that a lot of the times is because throughout the years, this area had gotten so popular with teens that they would go out there, they'd party, they'd drink, and stay out on the road. Well, the traffic is not slow out there, and a lot of people have been hit and killed by the traffic. I want to say in 2011, I did a paranormal investigation out there with another team, and we actually caught an EVP of, to us, what sounded like a child saying, "Come and get me." Like it's creepy. I could probably pass that off to you, and you can play it later if you'd like. But it was pretty creepy. So I know there's been a lot of paranormal happenings out there. Yeah. Even UFO sightings out in Joplin. There's been a lot of UFO sightings. MUFON's had a large case out there. A lot of course, in this area, the Ozarks, a lot of Sasquatch.
Oh yeah,
Bigfoot sightings.
Absolutely.
But the biggest thing I took away from Joplin was that there may have been some kind of Native American legend to this,
Hmm.
because this legend's been around for a long time. Like it predates settlement, white settlement. The Army Corps of Engineers had gone out there and they spent 2 weeks out there trying to figure out what this thing was, and their conclusion was that it was a light of an unknown origin.
Yeah.
So not even the Army Corps of Engineers was able to classify it or debunk it. Um,
Hmm.
so that just kind of puts more mystery on it.
Yeah. I'm wondering too. You said you saw like a blue light that crossed the whole road, right? It
Yeah,
wasn't just an orb.
yeah.
Is that the only form that it takes, or does it take an orb form as well?
So here's the thing about about the spook light, and it's so odd in its behavior. The majority of the time you see it, it's further down the road. It's quite a distance away,
Okay.
um, and it'll look like just this blob of light. And sometimes it actually splits into multiple lights.
Hmm.
Now there have been instances where people have had this light approach them, and even come into their car and pass through the car. Um, a friend of mine back, he said it was in the 70s, I think. Him and his brother were out there, and they had it pass through their car, disturbed the radio, um, and but it didn't affect anything. Didn't like leave any marks on it. Didn't burn anything. There was no heat, no nothing, and it just freaked them out enough. His brother backed the car up into a ditch, and they had to run off by foot. I won't say his name out of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but another friend of mine also had a similar experience where it came through his car, and he said it was like static electricity where the hair raised up on their arms and on their heads, and
Wow.
as soon as it came through the windshield, like it just disappeared.
Okay.
But the funny thing is, as much as it seems to approach people, if you approach it, it goes away.
Uh-huh.
As
That's
if like,
typical with a lot of paranormal phenomena,
yeah.
actually. Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you this. When you were seeing this thing, what was the feeling you were getting from it? Did you experience any emotion at all when you were seeing it?
In regard to the blue light, like
Mhm.
I was like a deer in the headlights. Like, did I just?
Yeah.
It's like you scratch your head. It's like, did I just really see that? But
Yeah.
whenever somebody sitting next to you is like, did I just see that? It's like, oh, you
Mhm.
saw it too. Um, that it doesn't make me feel any different way. It's just a little confounding. But there's been other times where I've been out there and seen a light down the road,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I'm a skeptic, and I can't say I saw the spook light. There's houses all out there.
Mhm.
There's radio towers everywhere, or not everywhere. There's 2 radio towers out there. There's a highway that's far back beyond the end of the road back there,
Right.
interstate. And for me to just say like something I seen at a great distance is the light, I can't go on record and say that's it.
Mhm.
So like I stay skeptical to it, but I do get curious about maybe I did see it. Maybe this wasn't the house. We've tried approaching some of these lights that we've seen, but when we get down to the end of the road, there's nothing there that's matching up with what we saw. So to say it is, I can't. Say it isn't, I can't. So
Right.
it's still a mystery.
Right. And we can't say that it's like a mirage or anything like
Yeah,
that. This is something totally different.
yeah, dead white.
Um, is there quartz in the area, perhaps?
So piezoelectric energy is a
Yeah.
possibility.
Physio. Mm-hmm.
Um, there is quartz. I mean, any mountainous region is going to have quartz.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about that type of energy is during its disbursement, it doesn't last longer than a minute.
Mm.
These lights have been seen for multiple minutes. They've seen up and like taking off from eye level into the sky. Um, and to move around as much as it does, I can't say that it is. Now, maybe that might explain the blue light that we saw,
Mm.
but I don't think it could necessarily debunk and explain every sighting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting that. It almost seems like as if it has its own intention. That's what I'm getting here. It's not just a light that just appears and then goes away for everybody. Sometimes it moves around, and it seems like it may even interact with some people. So that's a different thing entirely.
The whole thing about the approach is what has baffled me about it. And I mean, I may have theories on that, but that's all they are, is just theories and thoughts, which those can obviously be debunked by somebody that knows more than I do. So
right. Let's go ahead and get into that. What do you think you're seeing?
Let me go a little bit further into this, and before I do this grand reveal, because it's going to be an it's going to be an aha moment. I promise you, it's going to be worth it.
Okay.
So after that, we go to the Brown Mountain Lights in North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and out there we were told that that area, there's a lot of government activity out there. There's a lot of NASA activity out there. In fact, there was so much so that they called the highway that runs through there Highway 181. They used to call it Area 181.
Okay.
And there's a film out there called Abduction. And it's a true story, or it's based on a true story of somebody from the Brown Mountains that was apparently abducted by aliens. So there's obviously the Appalachian Mountains. There's a lot of Bigfoot sightings, a lot of UFOs, and so that stuff takes center stage. But with the Brown Mountain Lights, it's all about, like, Brownville. That area is all about the lights. And so the first night we went out there, we went to this overlook, the Brown Mountain Overlook, and you can stand there and you can look at these mountains that are like 6 miles away. Like, it's a beautiful sight. I encourage anybody to go out there, just if you're wanting to sightsee. But the first night we were out there, we didn't see anything. We did hear some suspicious noises out in the woods, like Bigfoot calls, maybe.
Okay.
We made some jokes about it.
Good.
You can see that in the second film. So after talking with locals, we learned a lot about, like, a lot of the descriptions of the lights they were either these white lights or they're like this reddish orange light. And so at the library doing the research, the Geological Survey from the U.S. government back in the 1920s went out there and tried to debunk them. They came up with a list of ideas of debunking them, but the funny thing was there was somebody that went behind them and debunked all their explanations, and that's all, like, documented at the library. And so that kind of made me chuckle. But then, like, a lot of, maybe the biggest explanation was the train was new out there. Having the tracks and the train system running through the mountains there was new. So they always started, it's the light from the train that people are seeing running through the mountains and everything. And I think it was 1919. There was a major flood out there, and there was no cars driving through there. There were no trains going through there, and people were still seeing the lights.
Yeah.
But when we were talking with the locals, we were told about another location to go view these, and there's a place called Wiseman's View. It's a good drive into the mountains, especially. You better have a 4x4. I did not. They did not warn me about this. threw my van out of alignment.
Oh no! What were you driving?
I had an Astro van. I gutted the whole thing.
Loaded down with equipment, no doubt.
Exactly. I gutted it. Left the two captain's chair. Left the equipment in there. It put it all out of alignment. But once you get up there and you take this little hike, there's these rock pulpits that kind of hang over the edge of the cliff, and you can stand there and you get this great view of the gorge, and you get, like, Hawksbill Mountain and Table Rock Mountain. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So that night we were out there. We actually got to see these lights, and I would 100% say I saw the lights, and I even captured them. The first capture we got was photographic. We were seeing these white lights appearing on the mountains. So Josh with his I think he had the Canon T6. He was opening the aperture on the camera to soak in all the light, do a long exposure shot. We got some long exposure shots of some of these lights, and some of them, like, they're moving above the tree line, but like their path, it seems like it's lighting up the trees as it's passing by. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing this light over Hawksbill Mountain. It would come into existence and then it would blink out. And every so often it would come into existence. So I hit Josh and I was like, hey, get a shot of this with the thermal. And we got a thermal shot for like 1 to 2 seconds of it before it blinked out of existence for the rest of the night. But we caught it on thermal. And the thing about thermal imaging, for those that don't know, is it reads like almost like surface temperature. Something has to have a dense enough mass to create this surface temperature for that thermal imager to read. And these lights apparently have enough mass to read on a thermal imager, which is bizarre.
That is bizarre.
Maybe about a half hour later, we started seeing more lights. And I was running a Canon XA20 out there, which has night vision. But what I did as well was I was still able to open up the aperture on that, like your DSLRs. So with that video camera, I opened up the aperture, and of course the video is jumpy because it's, trying to take in so much. But over on Table Rock Mountain, I noticed there was this red light that was on the mountain. So I started filming it. And as I'm filming it, this red light takes off from the top of the mountain and starts going up into the air and then just disappears. And then maybe, I want to say 10 seconds later, it reappears in the same spot, just sitting there, and then it disappears for the rest of the night. And I will be straight out honest with everybody. If you've ever seen the double rainbow guy, that was me. That was me dead over. I'm like, oh my God, a double rainbow.
I've had my own double rainbow experience myself, and it was on film. So
it's even worse when it's on film and you have to edit and you have to leave it in there because it's part of the video, guys. It has to be like natural reactions. But it was an amazing moment to see that, and everybody that we talked to out there, what we witnessed, like it coincided with everything. And we felt really good at the end of the filming of that first film because everything happened in stages for us. And we were actually, before that second night, we were kind of pissed. We were like, man, we've been spending all this money traveling all over the place. We ain't caught a damn thing.
Right.
And then that last night happened, and it just made it all worth it. So we went home, did our own thing. I had another podcast, the Paranormal Frequency podcast at the time. And doing that, I was doing some research for other stories for the show. And we were doing some things about CERN, the Hadron Collider. And, some of the things that they were doing out there was piquing my interest, and I started getting back into the spook lights a little bit. And I noticed that there was a college that's out in the Carolinas that tried to recreate these lights in a laboratory setting. And the only way that they were actually able to recreate the lights was with plasma. And plasma doesn't just form in nature. It has to have a high energy source, like lightning. But these lights are not happening during a lightning storm.
Right.
So somehow there's trace elements of plasma in these lights. They likened it to that of a candle flame.
Okay.
And it got me interested into the spook lights again. I year later, hit Josh up. Hey, we got to do a sequel. So we tried to pick out 3 places. We were going to go back out to the Brown Mountains. And unfortunately, a hurricane had just hit literally the month we were going to go back out there. I think it was Hurricane Florence or something hit. And so that dampened our trip there. But we went back out to the Joplin lights because we wanted to explore the Native American aspect. And in the first film, there was an article I read off that talked about this lady. She's part of the Ogopa tribe, or the Quapaw tribe. And she would discuss like how she would do a ritual, leave offerings, and every time she would do that, she would see the light. And funny enough, during one of the premieres of the first show, she actually showed up to the premiere, and we set up a thing to go out there and have her do her ritual out there. And we did that. And we were actually surprised to find that she was already seeing the light, and we actually filmed it out there on the Spook Light Road. Our second place that we did is where everything takes a huge left turn, guys. So there's a place in outside of Mena, Arkansas, called the Board Camp Crystal Mine. You may have seen it on Expedition Unknown's Hunt for Extraterrestrials, where Josh sees this light above him over the trees. So this place got my curiosity because of some of the happenings out there, and some of the claims are pretty damn amazing.
Yeah.
They have 60 acres out there where you can go out there and mine crystals. You can dig up crystals. So obviously the elements are there for something natural. But what happened out there, it ain't natural.
Okay.
So they have a stage out there. I guess they had concerts and stuff too. But up past the stage, up on this hill, there's a place they call the event site. This is where Josh saw the light on Expedition Unknown. But when they first bought the property, they were seeing these lights out there, like just little balls of light, floating around out there. And they invited their son out one night to come see these lights. And they were sitting on the stage. And all of a sudden, this is their words, they saw 3 beams of light shoot up from the ground about 300 feet into the sky, and they're cut off at the top.
Whoa.
Yeah. It lasted for about 10 seconds, and then it was gone. And Cheryl, she likened it to somebody being out there with spotlights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on their property. And she said if they were going to drive spotlights out there, they would have heard them pulling the trailer out on the dirt road and stuff. So they went up to investigate this, and they found all their metallic tools and fence posts were all magnetized. The some of the trees up there had burn marks on the trees. And that was one of the big things that got my curiosity about the place. And then I saw some video that they had taken where they were having rocks move on their own, rocks levitating.
What?
Yeah. And I have some of the video I can send to you at some point. They had rocks levitating, rocks moving. Apparently, Orville, Cheryl's husband, he actually went up to the event site that night to go see what else was going on up there. And I guess 45 minutes had passed, and he'd come back down, and he was like saying something like he didn't find anything. And they were asking, why'd it take you so long? And he's like, I was only up there for a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, you've been gone for like 45 minutes. He's like, no,
missing time.
Like 2 or 3. Exactly.
Yeah.
So all these claims in these videos I discovered and found, and I was like, we got to go out there. There's something anomalous that's going beyond these lights. They're having the light anomalies, but there's something more happening here. We got to go.
Yeah.
So we did. And when we got there, we were told, a lot of people have had UFO sightings out there, which that was one of my first thoughts with the beams of light being cut off at the top. They had MUFON out there exploring it and investigating. And so, yeah, I figured, hey, maybe this had something to do with UFOs, an energy source like a mountain full of crystals. I mean,
right.
I can see why there would be sightings.
Mm-hmm.
But as we took this tour with Orville, started taking us deeper into the woods, started showing us like tree structures, as well as trees being pulled over into other trees and woven together. Rocks being placed into trees, rocks being lined up on logs, rock stackings. There's a lot of things that were going on out there. They apparently had a lot of Bigfoot activity out there as well. Mm-hmm. And they even showed us castings of footprints that they've had out there. So I was like, okay, so we've got like this gambit of stuff. We're out here to find these lights. This is what we were looking for. We're bringing Bigfoot in. We're bringing in the UFOs. I'm like, come on.
Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm like, whatever. Okay, well, we're just gonna focus on the lights. So that first night, we're on the stage, waiting for the lights, and all of us, myself, Josh, Orville, Cheryl, and there was a guy from MUFON with us. We see this light traveling across the sky. I thought it was an airplane at first. It was traveling an awful lot, a lot faster than an airplane normally does. There was no signal lights on there like the red and green lights, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And I tried to get it on video, couldn't get it on video. Goes behind a cloud, disappears. I'm like, okay. Technically, we saw a UFO. It's unidentified.
Right.
It's okay. Whatever. Right. So during our tour, there's a tree that it's grown like a teacup, where it's got a handle, like it grows out, comes back into the tree.
Gotcha.
And in it, there's a rock sitting in there, and it's a little bit taller than I am. I'm 5'9", so it was probably about 6 foot up. Little rock that was shoved up there. Josh took it out of there, laid it at the base of the tree. So that night we're walking around, and we come across that tree, and that rock's still at the base of the tree. But there's a bigger boulder jammed into that tree where that rock was, and it looked like it was wedged in there like perfectly. In front of the tree appeared to be what looked like a footprint, a massive footprint. But it was all dust. It was dry, so you can't cast it. But we got video of it, and we took pictures. And my first thought is, they know we're out here. People know we're out here. They've already told us about Bigfoot. Maybe they're just selling us on this, you know?
Yeah.
The skeptic in me, I'm very leery of people, very leery.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting. So Josh went and took that rock out. We went to the site where there was a bunch of rocks laid out on a tree. We swiped them off and left one. We went to the site where there was a rock stacking, and we were with Orville at this time. We went to the rock stacking, and we were like, okay, it's whatever. We hung a glow stick there just to leave it as a gift or something, see if it moves or something. So we left there, started walking down this path. A rock stacking that wasn't there before had showed up on this path. Odd. But again, they knew we were out there, knew what we were doing.
Right.
Maybe they're screwing with us. We go back to that other rock stacking, and now, instead of one rock stacking, there's two of them in the same spot. We're like, okay, this is pretty good. This is getting pretty good. We're like, whatever. Orville goes home. It's just me and Josh. We decided to go into the middle of the woods, middle of the night. We get lost for about 2 hours. Could not find our way back to our campsite on stage. And by the time we do, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. We're beat. We're like, we're just going to go to bed. Tomorrow we're going to hit the library. We're going to do some research and all this. Go to bed. I wake up about 3:30. And you know that the Moorhead talking that you've got?
Yes. Yeah.
I wake up to that.
That's the they call it like the samurai chatter.
Yes. It's like a caveman grunt mixed with samurai chatter.
Yeah.
And I heard this and I about wet myself. I'm like, oh, buddy. So I'm sitting there listening to this for like maybe 5 minutes before I decide I'm going to get up. I'm going to just sneak out there and I'm going to turn a flashlight on real quick because it was close. It was really close. And it wasn't just one. It sounded like two of them going back and forth.
Yeah.
I never thought I would ever hear anything like that ever. So I go out there, shine on the light. Nothing's there. All the chatter stops. I'm like, okay. Turn the light off. I go back to my tent. I'm just sitting there for a few minutes. Nothing. All right. Maybe I was coming out of sleep. Maybe I was just hearing something, you know. So I lay back down. And about 5 minutes later, out in the woods, get a lot of clapping. So I'm like, all right, I'm trying to sleep. You guys are keeping me awake. Turn on my cell phone, start recording with my cell phone.
Yep.
So I was able to record the hand claps. It went on for probably a good 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes before I got up. I was trying to wake Josh up. He was in another tent, but I knew if I got as loud as I wanted to wake him up, it would stop everything. So I started walking towards the front of the stage, walked around to the back of the stage where they had a door, and by the time I got to the door, it all stops. And it sounded like something was thrown up on stage, but the next morning I couldn't find it.
Yeah, that's common.
So I was a little geeked out and a little bit terrified because I'm not a Squatcher, guys. I'm not a Bigfoot guy. I'm not one that goes out looking for Bigfoot. Or at least I wasn't then. So the next morning I tell Josh what I heard. I showed him the video off my phone, and we go back out, follow our path through the woods, and where they had the line of rocks laid out on a log, and we left one, there's a new line of rocks laid out on the log. We're like,
yep,
interesting. So we go find Orville, and we ask him about it. He denied doing anything with it. Like, okay, that's fair. So we go to town, do some research. And we're trying to find stuff on the spook lights. We're trying to find information about the light anomalies and everything, but we both kept going back to the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least I did, with the experiences I was having. And I don't know, something about me was like, I need to look into the Bigfoot stuff. I need to look into the UFO stuff. So I started pulling up like sightings and of UFOs and Bigfoot out in the region, and there's a lot. And I pulled up this map that kind of details like density of Bigfoot sightings, and I found a map of UFO sightings, and in that area, huge density. But what I started to notice is that everywhere that these light anomalies are, there's a huge density of UFO and Bigfoot sightings. Important information to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
So that second night, we go back out. We're all up at the event site. There's a guy from MUFON with us. Started getting dark. We started heading back down the hill on this trail to go to the stage. And as we're heading down this trail, we started smelling the musty urine-soaked odor. And we're like, oh my God, do you smell that? Do you smell that? And we're all like kind of freaking out a little bit. And we're like, all right, let's just get back to the stage, grab some equipment or whatever. We turn around, boom, rock lands right in between everybody.
Perfect.
So I had a camera on me. I caught that on camera, or at least the sound of it. And we're shining lights in the woods. I'm looking with infrared, like trying to look in there, and we're not seeing anything. So I'm like, all right. So we started smelling the odor again. I'm like, F this. If I'm going to die, at least I'm going to get it on film. I start running into the woods, and Orville followed me because, I mean, obviously you don't want somebody just going into the woods
right.
after one of
Exactly.
Things.
Exactly.
I don't know what I was thinking, but whatever. So I run into the woods. We didn't find anything. So we started turning around. Apparently, about 20 yards into the thicket, there's a little creek bed. I ended up in this creek bed, just running up the creek bed. Didn't find anything, so we started turning around. We started walking backwards, or back. Heard some twigs snapping. So I turned to look. Didn't see anything. So then I turned back to start walking, and a rock comes flying by my head so hard I heard like the whiz of the rock, and the camera actually picked up like the sound of it, like just flying by and smacking into some other rocks. It sounds like on the camera it just sounds like a whip crack.
Yeah.
But I was a little freaked out then because like that was a little too close to my head.
Right.
And I was like, all right, let's go. Let's not stick around any longer. So
I get out of there too. Holy crap.
So we get up to the stage. We review the video and listen to the audio and everything. And the guy from MUFON, it's a little late for him, so he leaves. Orville and Cheryl, they leave. So it's just myself and Josh out there. And we did the smartest thing that we could think of. We split up in the woods. He took an infrared camera. I took an infrared camera, and we split up. Fortunately for me, my experience out there at this time was not as terrifying as Josh's. And if you want a great laugh, and this is how intense his moment was. It was so intense. While editing, was tensing up just watching it, trying to edit
Mhm.
it. Like, I know what he experienced, and know that he's 100% honest. And I was just getting tense just watching it. But while he was by himself, he had something following him along the path out in the woods, just trailing him,
Yep.
mirroring him, and
Mhm.
he could hear some of the leaf crunches and stuff out there. So, he would stop periodically, be like, "Who's out there?" That kind of thing. And then he had a rock thrown at him, and he's like, "Okay, okay, that's one." Started telling himself, you get 3 chances, so that's just one.
Mhm.
So he keeps going further, starts hearing this stuff again, and gets another rock thrown at him. He's like, all right, that's 2. I'm going to get out of here. So he starts bussing it out of there, walking fast. And he started slowing down, and he just starts singing to himself to keep himself calm. And he started singing to his mom because her birthday was actually that day. He's
Mhm.
like, "Happy birthday, Mom. Tonight's the night your son dies at the hands of a Sasquatch," or something like that. And as soon as he's singing, a bigger boulder lands right behind him, and he about pees himself. And it just, at that point on, it just felt like a super intense moment because he's trying to find his way out of the woods,
Yeah.
and this thing's like following him and just
Right.
mirroring him, just kind of making sure he leaves. Um, so like the intensity, it was the most intense thing I've ever had to edit. Um, for me, I had one thing that sounded like it was thrown, but it may have been an acorn, so I wasn't too worried about it. And I made my way all around the property.
Right.
But at the end of it, I started thinking back a lot about some of the stuff from the first film all the way to the second film and in between. With the findings from the college with the plasma.
Mhm.
As I said, I started looking into CERN and some of the stuff that they were doing, and what CERN had published. I think it was in 2018. Was this article about them opening up tiny black holes?
Mhm. Mhm.
And they said when they were doing this, what they were finding was these black holes were leaving trace elements of plasma.
Ooh.
So, based on everything that I was kind of going through at the time, I was like, well, okay, let's think about this in a logical manner. If I'm an alien traveling through space, I'm not going to go light speed, dodge every asteroid, every planet, every sun, everything. No, you're going to open up a portal, a rip in space and time. You're going to travel through a wormhole.
Yep.
You're going to open up something, right? Now, a lot of people believe Bigfoot, Sasquatch is an interdimensional being. If it is, it would have to travel. It'd have to open up a hole in space and time to travel. You
Yep.
know, so quantum theorists have speculated that, since we only use 90% of our brain, what if we used a little bit extra? At this point now, they're theorizing that we can change our environment, our surroundings, as we are now, with our own brain power. But if we had
Mhm.
a few extra percentage of usage, what else could we potentially do?
And achieve. Yeah. Excellent.
So
Absolutely.
so we know nothing about Bigfoot, but what if Sasquatch uses more of its brain, or has a certain area of its brain
Mhm.
that is more functional than what we do, and it is able to distort the reality around it, which is why you would probably see so many blurred photos. Maybe the distortion that you're seeing is the space and time being distorted as
Mhm.
you're taking that photo. Um, but the funny thing is, like, if these beings are traveling and they're going through these wormholes or portals, then there's probably some plasma being left behind, which is possibly what we're seeing at these locations is the remnants of that travel. Now, could that explain why these balls of light move? Not necessarily. I mean, you could throw it. You can just light one of those Chinese lanterns and let it go, and it'll float up. I mean,
Right.
why wouldn't these balls of light just float around? But that was my big theory after that. I was like, well, that was my come to Jesus moment. I'm like, what we're witnessing are portals for all these beings. entering our realm.
And I really agree with that. I mean, I've caught Bigfoot on thermal, and it just fades away and disappears. And I have no explanation for that sort of thing happening.
Yeah.
I almost wonder, we only have, like 7 minutes left here, but
Sorry, guys.
Oh, no worries, man. You've been great. You've been great. No problem. I definitely would like to have you back on. You've got a lot of info, and I appreciate that. I just want to say thank you, Deb from SAC, for the $10. And I think there was another one for $5 here, checking real quick before I move on. But yeah, it's there. You have a lot of information. Cat Chaser, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Appreciate that very much. It goes to SOR, and we love it. We need it. Thank you very much, and keeps our show going. But yeah, man, the harmonics that they can produce in their chest. I'm wondering if they can open something up. The Earth's frequency is 7.83, which is known as the Schumann's Earth resonance.
Yes.
But if they can manipulate that somehow in their chest and open up some sort of a gateway, or like you say, a porthole, or a way to travel interdimensionally in some way, that could explain a lot.
That frequency isn't something that we would hear.
No, it's way lower than we can hear.
And with my my ghost hunting and stuff, that's something I'm exploring with ghost hunting is frequencies. I actually have 2 Schumann generators back here.
I've got one
that I'm using in conjunction with mirrors and opening portals.
Nice.
There's certain frequencies that also mess with our brains, and right now I'm finding at 456, 458 hertz. Staring into a mirror with those frequencies, you actually see some messed up things in mirrors. I've watched my face melt away. I've had. We got just a couple minutes.
Yep.
I did a thing at the Titanic Museum in Branson, Missouri, this past October, and while I was doing this, my surroundings stayed the same, but my body shadowed out. Like, as, if somebody's shadows crosses.
Yeah.
It just did that over my body. Nothing else, just my body. It was so bizarre. But it's a fun experiment to try at home for all you kids out there.
Well, we're going to have you back on to talk about that, because you and I, as far as frequencies and that sort of thing, we're thinking in similar circles here. Definitely. Oh, yeah. I've got some cool tools that I want to talk to you about. Anyway, sure. for the paranormal and for and tracking those frequencies and whatnot. But I thank you, sir. Where can people find your stuff, and how can they contact you?
Our podcast, Boogeyman Radio, is on YouTube. You can just go to YouTube, search at Boogeyman Radio Show. That's Boogeyman with a Y, E-Y. Haunting History as well is on YouTube. The Into the Light films are on the Haunting History channel, so you can dive through that hot mess of videos and find it. I also have another documentary on there called The Ghosts of Malvern, which just basically talk about all the ghosts that are at this location with evidence and personal experiences there. The Midwest Mystery Tour, I usually kick that off in spring. There's a Facebook page for that if you guys want to jump on there, get updated about everything. If you want to join one of the tours, see where we're landing at some of these locations. And I'm on all social medias, mostly Facebook and TikTok. So
right on. Well, guys, this show has gone way too quick, way too fast. And David, I thank you very much, sir. I definitely want to talk with you later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Via text and whatnot on Facebook. So thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. You got a lot of great information, man.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'm going to put you backstage. Okay. So, guys, Dave's up next, man. And don't forget to get some SOR swag at our store. Dave would appreciate that very much. And so would I. I know that Jackie and I are working on some shirts anyway, just to let you know, to go in the SOR store. Anyway, we're going to hit the outro, and I will be seeing you guys later tonight from 11 to 12. I'm going to be on with Dave doing the cryptid report. Now, I've got some stuff to share with you, quite amazing stuff, actually. So I want to see you all there. And here's Dave up next.